So now let's just take a look at this question over here. So with this question, it says that the marks obtained in a test by 40 students or people are as follows. So 78, 60, 78, 66, and so on. So now these are the marks obtained by 40 students. So when you count these numbers over here, they will have to be 40. Now A, it says that construct a frequency table using the class interval from 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, and so on. Then B, draw a histogram for the distribution. And C, use the histogram to find the mode. Then D, calculate the mean of the distribution. So now this is a question that we are supposed to solve. So with this, first we are supposed to construct our frequency table using the class interval from 10 to 19, 20 to 29, and then so on. So first, this is how the table is going to look like. Now because this is an ungrouped data, it means that we have to introduce the tally. Okay, so we are going to use the tally over here. Then when you take the first interval, that is from the 10 to 19, look for numbers over here that are between 10 and then 19. So over here, when you look through, we have the 18, and then we have the next digit over there too, the 18 as well. So now we have two of them. So the frequency for that is 2. Then the 20 to 29. So 20 to 29, that is going to be so 27 over here, 27 over here, and then we have another 27 down here. Then we have 24 over here. So now we have 4 of them. Okay, so that is how come we have 4 bars over here. So the frequency for that is 4. The next we have from 30 to 39, that is going to be so we have one over here, one over here, we have another over here, 30, we have 39, we have 30, we have 30, 33, 39, 33, 30, 36, 86. Okay, so now we have the 30s over here. So now whenever you are doing the tally, so with this you do 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. Now when you get to the 5th bar, you are supposed to strike it through the 4 bars over there, so making this over here 5. Okay, so anytime you are doing the tally, you only do 4 of the bars over there. Then the last one will have to strike through the 4, making the 5th count. So now this is going to be 5 over here, this is also going to be 5, so making it 10. Then this is 2. Okay, this is much more easier for you to count and know the number of bars you have in there. So now the frequency for that is 12. So from 40 to 49, the frequency for that is 6, and so on. So you do this to complete the table. So now this is how the table is going to look like. Then next, we are supposed to sum up all these numbers over here. So we sum up these numbers. That is the frequency. Okay, so 2 plus 4 plus 12 plus 6 plus 1 plus 8 plus 5 plus 2, and that is going to give us 40. So this over here means that the total number of elements over there is 40, and it tallies with the number of elements they gave us over here. So of course our count over here is correct. Okay, so you have to be very careful. After everything over here, if you sum this number up and you don't get the exact number as the number of elements over here, then it means that you might have gone wrong somewhere. So you have to go back and then cross check what you've done. Okay, so it is very, very important, very necessary for you to always do this over here when you're done. So now we have a table over here. Now we are going to introduce the midpoint and the fx. Now the reason why we need the midpoint is because we want to find the mean. And with the mean, we cannot use this interval over here to find for the mean. Okay, so with the mean, the formula for the mean is the summation of fx over summation f. So in this case, our f is going to be the frequency, which is this over here. But we cannot use this interval over here for the x. So we have to strike the midpoint of these intervals, and then we use them to 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 represent the x. Then we can now get our fx that we solve for our mean. So next, we are going to get a midpoint. So now the midpoint. Now to get a midpoint, you take the lower class over here, you take the upper class over here, you sum them up, you divide by 2. So now in this case, it is going to be 10 plus 19 divided by 2. That is going to give me 14.5. Then 20 plus 19 divided by 2 is going to give me 24.5. Then 30 plus 39, that is 69 divided by 2 is going to give me 34.5. So you do this over here to complete this side of the table. Okay, that is how to get a midpoint. So you add the lower and the upper element, then you divide by 2. That is how to get the midpoint. And again, I'm repeating, the reason why we use the midpoint is because we cannot use this interval over here to find for the mean. And of course, it is going to play a major role when it comes to drawing the histogram, because with the histogram, there are two ways to draw a histogram. You can either use the midpoint or use the class boundary. So in this case, we having to find the midpoint over here will go a long way to help us in drawing the histogram. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So now after getting our x values, the next thing that we have to do is to find the fx. That is the frequency multiplied by the x values. So now it's going to be, so 2 times 14.5, that is 29. Then 4 times 24.5, that is 98. Then 12 times 34.5, that is 414. So we do this all the way until we get to the last end. So now this is going to be our fx. So it is the frequency, that is the f, multiplying the midpoint, that is the x. So in this case, this is what we get for that. Now when you are done, you will sum them up. That is the summation of the fx. So you sum these numbers over here up. So we add these numbers over here, and we are going to get the, the summation of the fx. So now that we have the summation f and the summation fx, now we can move on to get the mean of the distribution. So now the mean is giving us, so the mean is equal to the summation of fx over the summation of f. Now this is equal to, so summation fx is 1920 and the summation f is 40. So now when we divide this, we are going to get a final result to be 48. So therefore, the mean of the distribution is 48. Now the next thing we're going to do is to draw a histogram, of course. So with a histogram, um, this is how it's going to look like. So we have our histogram, which is these over here. So on the vertical side, we have the frequency. On the horizontal, we have the max. Now in this case, I used the midpoint. So now you take note whenever you are drawing the histogram. You can decide to use the class boundary or use the midpoint. Now in this case I used the midpoint, but then you are at liberty to use the class boundary if you want to. Okay, so I've already made a video on how to use the class boundary to solve for histogram like this, and how to calculate for the class boundary, so you can go back and then watch that. But then for this particular example, I am going in for the midpoint because I have already found for it already over here. So I have the midpoint. Then on this side over here I have the frequency. So now for the frequency, one major problem that students do face a lot is how to choose a correct scale for the frequency. Now with this, I used 2 centimeters is to 1 unit on the vertical axis, because the highest number over here is 12, and for our graph, the number of 2 centimeter boxes we have for the vertical side is 12. So you can see that over here we have 12 of these big boxes. So this is one of them, this is one of them, so two, so three, I left one down here, so four, then five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. So you can see that we have 12 of these big boxes over here. So now if you want to know the scale that you want to choose or the scale to use, now it's going to be the highest number over here. So in this case it is going to be 12, then divided by the number of boxes. In this case it is 12 as well. So now when I divide this, I'm going to get my answer to be 1. That is how come I'm using 1 unit for each 2 centimeter box you see over there. So that is the scale I used. Okay, so if with this you get a decimal, you can run it up and then use those numbers as well. So there is already a video on how to choose a scale for your graph. So again, you can go back and refer to that video as well. So now we have this over here to be our histogram, and of course with the midpoint you realize that the marks over here is at the middle of the bar. Okay, so we take our marks over here to be at the center or the middle of these bars over here. So at the middle of the bar, so you can see that we have them at the middle of these bars. So for the 14.5, the frequency is 2. So 14.5, the frequency is 2, and you can see that from our graph. For the 24.5, the frequency is 4. So 24.5, the frequency is 4. So you do this until you finish with everything over here. Okay, so now that is our histogram. Then the next thing is for us to use our histogram to solve for the mode of the distribution. So now to get the mode, and now you take the bar with the highest frequency. So in this case it is going to be the 34.5, because it has the highest frequency, which is 12. Okay, so now anytime you are given the histogram and then you want to use the histogram to solve for the mode, take the bar with the highest frequency. So in this case the highest frequency among all of them is the 12, and it is for this midpoint, that is the 34.5. So now the 34.5, which is this over here, so the bar, so this bar over here happens to be the longest of them all. So now when you take that bar, now you get to this end, you draw a straight line from this part over here, that is where uh, this next bar over here is ending. Okay, so now the top of the next bar to it. So this is the top of that bar. So you draw from that point over here to the tip, what the other tip over here. Then you draw another straight line from the next bar to the other tip over here. Now the point of intersection of these two bars over here, so where these two bars over here are meeting, so in this case, so you can see, so where these two bars over here are meeting, that is going to be our mode. So you trace this over here down to your graph, and you read the value over there. So in this case, when I read the value over there, I am going to get the value to be 35.5. So from my graph, the mode of the distribution is 35.5. So you can see that this bar over here is 34.5. So I just move just one bar to the right, and that is 35.5. So you can see over here is 35.5. So that is the mode of the distribution.